Hey, we're live with John from DeFund. John, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to dive into DeFund and everything you guys are building. Um, so, DeFund, for those of you tuning in, is a modular liquidity hub built on RollKit with Celestia underneath. They recently launched Testnet, and so we're having John on to talk about their vision and what's happened since they launched Testnet. John, welcome. Why don't you give an intro to yourself and tell us a bit about DeFund?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, by the way. My name's John, one of the founders here at DeFund, and been building for quite some time now, in and out of Cosmos and across crypto space. And, DeFund is really our brainchild for however many years now. And we had an opportunity where we could move it over to Celestia with RollKit, and we immediately jumped at it and decided to just create a much better offering that actually answers the problems that people are facing right now in crypto.
Cool. Yeah, you guys have been building for a long time, and now you guys are pivoting to being a sovereign rollup, and we'll dig into that in a bit. So the main thing for me that I want to dive into with you is that, and I tweeted about this like a few weeks ago, but to me, the most clear killer app for crypto, everyone's talking about, okay, we need apps, right? We need users on chain, but the most clear killer app is trading, right? Like Coinbase and Binance are some of the biggest projects in crypto, but the irony is that they're not on chain really. They interact with blockchain, but they're not actually verifiable, and that leads to people getting scammed and rugged like FTX. And so it's clear that we really need a decentralized, non-custodial version of these exchanges, and yet no one's succeeded in building that yet. And so, the question for me is, why is that? Is it limitations on infrastructure? Is it possible that modular blockchains are what we need to unlock that possibility? And the cool thing about DeFund is that I think that you guys are trying to tackle that problem, which is how can we build an exchange that rivals, the user experience of these centralized exchanges, and is a modular hub, across the entire ecosystem, not just within, let's say, Solana or Ethereum or Celestia alone. And you guys are rethinking that problem from the first principles of all the new infrastructure that's been built in the modular stack and beyond. And so that's really what I want to dive into with you. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways to go with that, and I think DeFund is answering multiple of those questions. So, one of the biggest things that a Coinbase and a Binance and a Kraken and the Gemini, that all these exchanges they have is the ability to, one, get the trades done fast, like whether or not it's happening in the background very fast, it's happening on the user's end almost instantly. Like a Robinhood, for example, you press buy and it buys. It does it right away. So mimicking that experience, and then also actually distribution. So I don't know if you've noticed, all of those exchanges, they have a mobile experience. They all are able to reach the consumer directly where they're at. So by and then that's just their advantages. They also have a major liquidity advantage because, they're a custodian, they custody funds, they're able to source their own liquidity in all these other places. Um, and the infrastructure needs for them are not the same as a decentralized exchange where you need to run all your nodes, you need to run liquidity pools, you need to run all these other things. So for us, I'll just start knocking out from the top. From an efficiency basis, by moving to a modular stack, we can make it way more efficient, way fast. So, for example, what we were previously running, when we were not a rollup, we were attempting to run 400, 500 millisecond blocks, and we were getting those, but it was extremely unstable. We would get a 300 millisecond block, and then we get a 1.5 second block, and it was just completely unstable because you couldn't control the actual speeds. You had to rely on a fully distributed validator set. So switching to a centralized sequencer and then later a decentralized sequencer, we can go as fast as 100 milliseconds a block. That's faster than the eye can compute, and it's instant. So now we're at a spot where, okay, you have instant trading. Done. What's the next step? Now it's actually the distribution aspect, the mobile experience. So we're building, obviously, everyone uses a desktop in crypto for the most part, but on these centralized exchanges, they're all trading from their phone as well. Mobile support through and through directly from your phone right now. So on our testnet, um, mobile works. You just can't sign in with the wallet yet because of the limitations of the MetaMask Snap we're using. But
Mm-hmm.
we're adding things to actually remedy that, where you can actually just using your email have a full mobile experience, mimicking that of a centralized exchange. And then later, as we actually get the full app support, we're using iPhone Face ID and fingerprint and everything that mimics what these exchanges also have. Now, getting on to actual limitations from a decentralized exchange, infrastructure and actually liquidity pools. So, the infrastructure side, a normal DEX, you have to bootstrap an entire validator set, and you have to make sure that all your nodes are up to date, not missing peers. One slip up and your whole thing's going down. It is straight up expensive, and cross chain interoperability is very hard. You have to manage a lot of bridges. You have to manage connections and channels and a bunch of stuff that the centralized exchanges simply do not have to worry about. They just get assets in their company, write it on their books, and then post it up, and you're actually just trading a representative of that token instead of the actual physical token. Um, and then the liquidity pool issue. Um, it's a lot harder for a decentralized exchange to gain liquidity because there's a lot more hoops to jump through, and you're targeting more of a retail audience versus these centralized exchanges. They have the retail users, but they can just get however many big wigs they want, and they can use those funds to essentially match the orders on their order book.
Mm-hmm.
So on our end, we provide an order book functionality with our liquidity pools. And these liquidity pools, which we'll go into later, they're called these hedged pools. And the basis of it is that they remove impermanent loss. And by always keeping your principal and generating real yield on your returns, it's the best possible place to actually have liquidity. Just place it there. You're going to make more here than anywhere else on any other DEX. And then combining that with, we manage all the bridges and the connections to all these different assets and ecosystems. It now mimics that top to bottom everything I said, a centralized experience in a decentralized manner. If that makes any
Wow.
sense.
Well, yeah, you unpacked a lot of the things I wanted to go into, but we can dive deeper into all of those. So what I want to do is follow sort of the user journey, right, of someone who, maybe is new to crypto or isn't, but wants to, sees DeFund and says, hey, I want to sign up and I want to actually like start trading, right? So to me, there's kind of 4 steps, right? First is like they have to onboard, so they have to, you know, log in with their wallet, whether that's with an existing wallet or sign up, as you said, with their email account, right? And so let's talk about that first step, right? Because that's always been a real pain point for the crypto industry. Is like, let's say I wanted my mom to sign up for a crypto app, she would have to save her seed phrase or write down her private key, and there's just so many barriers to that. It's like the drop off rate when you have multiple clicks to sign up for an app is huge, but then when you add like a step of like, oh, well, actually hold on and grab a piece of paper and write down all these words and then come back and then also fill in
Mm-hmm.
those words, and make sure that they're right before we're going to let you use the app is crazy. So I actually use your guys' product, the Testnet, right? And you have a MetaMask Snap, which is awesome because it's the first time I've interacted with a Cosmos SDK chain with MetaMask. And so that allows you to tap into users who have already downloaded MetaMask. But as you said, you guys want to go bigger than that. You want to have distribution to anyone that's mobile, that has an email. And so my understanding is you guys are working with Magic Link and Capsule to do embedded wallets. So yeah, tell us a
Mm-hmm.
bit about your like approach to onboarding with wallets.
For sure. Yeah. It's just distribution, right? And giving people ready access to the product you're offering. So in crypto industry right now, the most used wallet for the most part is MetaMask, right? So having that support for an app is crucial because outside of crypto, the most used thing is email. That's why you want to have email support. You want to be able to actually bring your product to where the people are going. You can have the greatest product in the world, and people, if your product is that good, they will go through the 30 steps to get it. But there's also the majority of users that don't want to go through those steps and they just want to try it out. They want to get there as easy as possible. So that first part is just access, getting actually accessing the exchange. Make sure you can get there. So by the MetaMask Snap, we had built this MetaMask Snap a while ago, and it's finally getting a lot of use case in a bunch of different places, and specifically with DeFund right now on the DeFund Testnet. We've been able to, so like one of the limitations of this testnet right now is we have to actually IBC transfer over TIA into the DeFund chain, right? Luckily, with the snap that we built, we can actually IBC transfer natively in that MetaMask snap. It's not something that's built in MetaMask natively. So we're able to actually have that functionality, which is something that, as the testnet progresses and mainnet comes, it's going to be a flow that's already optimized. You don't even have to worry about that. But right now, that's the current limitation that's being remedied by the snap. And now with the actual email, that gives us our mobile support that allows people to just do everything that we were doing on this testnet currently directly from their phone. And then later, getting that full distribution where we don't have to market on Twitter anymore. We can start like, hey, why not start some TikTok ads? See if we can get some people like, hey, sign up, trade some crypto real easy, 3 clicks and you're in. That simple. Autofill your password. It'll save your key if you want to access it. Because these embedded wallets, they're pretty cool. Where, yeah, you have your seed phrase and everything, but it's not like a MetaMask where you're like, okay, the end of the world is the end of the world. You better put your seed phrase down. It's kind of in the background. And if you want to get to it, you can go find it. Go ahead. That's kind of how it should be. You should be able to find it if you ever need it. But it's not like this is absolutely necessary. You need to do this right now. And you don't need a browser extension. You don't need all these other things. You just need your email and you log in like you would any other normal application outside of crypto. So, and that's also mimicking what these centralized exchanges do. So that's the wallet answer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. You guys are both providing a way for existing crypto power users to onboard, via MetaMask. I think everyone who uses crypto has MetaMask already. Yeah. And then you also have a way for someone who's new to crypto to also onboard, using like any other app, the way that they would expect to. It makes a ton of sense. And also the whole Snap thing, right? I've used other chains where I had to bridge in via Kepler, and then I had to, and then I had to figure out, like, because they're an EVM chain under the hood, like use MetaMask. It was just like total mess. And so the fact that it's just MetaMask through and through with, you're able to bridge in funds that way is really, really cool.
And the cool thing, one more thing about the Snap, and then we move on. The Snap actually uses your existing seed phrase. So it's not like creating a whole new seed phrase. It's using everything you got, and it connects to your existing MetaMask assets, your existing EVM. So it actually makes the swapping process a lot easier. So like when DeFund is on mainnet, you're just gonna be able to swap from Polygon to DeFund without having to do all the IBC transfer steps. So, all right, we can move on to the next one. I just wanted to plug that in.
No, I mean, again, all these things are so important. You really got to dial that in. Otherwise, people are just not going to end up using the product. Okay, so someone has already signed up with their wallet. They've onboarded, but now there's the next step, which is they have to, add funds, deposit funds into the DEX. And, they could either do that by on-ramping from TradFi, I guess, or they could bridge in funds from whatever chain they currently have funds on. So how do you solve that aspect of the user onboarding experience?
So one of the more interesting use cases is actually using Stripe.
Interesting.
And yeah, so Stripe actually does have crypto support. They do charge a fee. It's about 3%, but you can onboard from Stripe into USDC if you build out the right workflows, which is what we're going to be doing. And by mimicking that, flow, now you can go from, okay, I just have my debit card. I can load a debit card into my account and I want to do just, okay, buy this currency. Say I want to buy Solana on DeFund, right? So I have my debit card loaded. I just press buy $100 worth of Solana, it'll using Stripe, using the routes that we can make, it'll draw from Stripe, show you your Stripe fees, then have the Solana purchase loaded up, show you the fees related, and then it'll complete that transaction in one click. So think about, you'll show just like kind of the end transaction. It'll say, all right, you want to buy $100 worth of Solana. It's going to cost you $111 after all fees.
Mm-hmm.
Done. And then it'll take from your debit card, buy USDC, swap the USDC, buy the Solana, and then it's in your wallet. And that's a huge pain point that is in crypto, because I don't know how many times you've tried to on-ramp or off-ramp. My current favorite on-ramping flow, I know it's terrible. There's two ways I on-ramp right now that are my favorite. Coinbase. Actually using Coinbase, and I added my MetaMask seed phrase and as my Coinbase wallet. So now I can just go from Coinbase wallet, bind there. It's still a terrible process. It takes multiple days. And then the other one, I use Cash App. I buy Bitcoin in Cash App, and then I do there's an exchange called StealthX that it just sends and does an OTC swap and sends it to my account. But even then, that's a terrible experience. That's just how I do it right now. We can optimize that into a singular click and directly from your bank account. Now that's paired with email and Face ID and a mobile experience. Now we're starting to feel like, okay, this might be a centralized exchange. It kind of feels like the same thing, but it's all code. There's not 100 people in the background custodying your funds. This is all code. This is all native blockchain, native tokens. Now we're starting to hit the real sweet spot on this is something that's really happening. This is a real crypto application that's working as advertised, accomplishing the things that's supposed to do. So yeah, that's the on-ramping experience, and off-ramping also through Stripe. And there's others too. Kato's is one that's in the Cosmos ecosystem. They work as well. We've used them before. There's other examples of this as well. There's plenty of on-ramp, off-ramp, like Transact and a couple others. But to me, Stripe, I mean, they dominate Web 2 for a reason. They're really good. And I'm glad they picked up crypto, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, one of the like metrics that you guys could try to optimize, or I would try to optimize if I were building something similar, is like, what is the time that it takes from someone who wants to sign up, like sign in their wallet and deposit funds? Like how short and how fast can we make that? And it sounds like you guys are optimizing for that. I mean, I could imagine this whole flow could take like a minute or two or something. But
yeah,
aside from just like onboarding funds that way, you also have to onboard liquidity from other chains, right? Because your goal is to be a liquidity hub for assets on other chains. So how are you bridging funds to and from these other chains, whether that's Celestia or Solana or wherever?
Yeah, so there's two ways we're doing that. One of them primarily is Hyperlane. Building out warp routes with Hyperlane between these other different ecosystems. And then the other is actually IBC. So right now, I don't know if you know, IBC is not currently live. Cross rollup and from rollup to outside. There's a lot of issues when it comes to just verifying the transaction there. We believe we have it figured out when it comes to an actual live IBC implementation. A couple people are also figuring out the same thing. But IBC makes it super easy because we can actually, send messages and control accounts and get whatever asset we need. But Hyperlane also is a great alternative to IBC that is currently live and working. We just have to build out all the warp routes. So, and then Axelar also works as well with, their bridging and general message passing as well. But I would say our two main sources of being able to bridge in between ecosystems are IBC and Hyperlane, and it covers everything. And now, except for one, that is sort of kind of being covered by Thorchain, but Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin gets interesting. So I've been talking to a couple people about this, and using stacks, we believe that we can actually get native Bitcoin on DeFund. We were talking with them recently about this, being able to essentially send messages and control Bitcoin accounts and sending them to a native Bitcoin address. So it changes a little bit of the way that we implement the DeFund account structure. But if we do it right, you can actually have your native Bitcoin all connected to a DeFund account with native Solana, native Ethereum, native TIA, all these native assets connected to a singular DeFund account. That's when stuff gets really fun.
Cool. Okay. Well, we have a lot to get through, so let's keep the pace
Mhm.
here. So now I've signed up, I bridged in funds, and now I want to trade or provide liquidity or what have you. As you mentioned, a lot of dexes get criticized because LPs, well, basically always lose money because of impermanent loss.
Mhm.
You're basically giving someone else an option to trade against you whenever, and like arb
Yeah.
against you and whatnot. But my understanding is you guys have a unique approach to this where you're going to have options when someone provides liquidity. There's basically options that like are attached to that position that hedge against impermanent loss and help to preserve the value that you deposited. So just unpack that really quickly. And the interesting thing is, Vitalik was talking about Ouroboros yield in DeFi and how DeFi is all self-referential, and only comes from sort of like it's not sustainable essentially. But my understanding is you guys want to make yield in a sustainable way, generated by real
Mhm.
trading fees. So I know talk about that really quick.
Yeah. So cool thing about DeFund that we haven't even touched on is it's also an options protocol, up to a
Mm,
thousand times leverage on nearly any asset because we can pair with a base stable coin and pretty much roll out any type of option, and these options have no liquidation risk, which is I'll dive into that later. But actually using those options, we essentially create a straddle option strategy on certain liquidity pools. All the biggest liquidity pools, they're going to be called, what are these called? Hedge pools, where we have calls and puts strategically placed that in whatever market movement you have, say there's a spike up, spike down, by pairing it with a stablecoin, one side is never going to lose as long as that stablecoin never depegs. As long as there's no stablecoin depeg, that's why we're using mostly USDC. The other side will always keep its principal because you are thoroughly hedged on both sides of the equation. So when you keep your principal and you're still earning the same fees that you would be getting from transaction fees on the DEX, on the actual order book, now you're looking at, okay, this is actual yield. You're actually earning because it's not based on inflation. It's actually just people using the protocol and people providing liquidity and fees from these actual options because the options are constantly being made.
mm,
So, and every time an option is made, there is a fee. Now you're actually getting those fees. So now, in comparison to, a Uniswap or Osmosis or any of these other, AMMs, you always have that risk of you put in $100 and yeah, you made your 40% APR, but your $100 isn't worth that much anymore because the base asset went down 40%.
mm-hmm.
You're not going to face that issue because of the options on both sides. So yeah, that's kind of where it comes in when you can actually preserve that principle. That's I don't know. It's just really cool, and that's where we think that it's going to answer a lot of the liquidity issues because at the end of the day, liquidity providing is mostly unprofitable when it should not be. It should be a
Mm-hmm.
profitable thing. Making the markets grease should make you money. That's just kind of that's my opinion on it. So
Yep. No, it's a huge problem because liquidity is really the primary network effect and the thing that makes an exchange successful. But if dexes are if you to provide liquidity on a dex is a money losing proposition, like no one's going to want to do it. And it's only like really
exactly.
sophisticated people who can do it. And decentralized finance as a movement is kind of about empowering individuals to participate, on equal footing in these financial systems. Okay, so the last thing on the this whole user experience now is just what you touched on at the very beginning, which is okay, I have my liquidity and I'm trading. Now I want that trading experience to be as fast as the centralized counterpart. And I saw you guys post, you tweeted some logs of your chain, and the
Mhm.
you could just see the blocks getting printed just insanely fast. And that was really exciting to me because I think one of the advantages of being a roll up, as you said, is that you don't have the full overhead of consensus with however many validators, so you can run consensus a lot faster. You make blocks a lot faster, essentially. And so it seems like you guys are taking advantage of that to make a real time user experience. So tell us how you achieved that.
Yeah. Pretty simply, we just changed the block time in RollKit, which is why RollKit is awesome, by the way. You know, I
So is
love
it literally,
RollKit. It is
it's just the parameter? You just said like, all
it's
right, we
just a
want 100
parameter.
milliseconds.
It's now you have to mess with a couple other parameters to make it like actually work right, but it's as simple as going in and saying block time 100 milliseconds, and the
It's
thing's
crazy.
spitting that fast. Now you obviously need a good enough setup to actually meet those block times, but it
Hmm.
is can because the Cosmos SDK itself extremely easy to work with. RollKit takes that to another level. Now you don't
Whoa.
not enough good things to say about RollKit. They're 10 out of 10 would recommend. But yeah, so literally just changing it to 100 milliseconds. Now, once you change it to 100 milliseconds, now you actually have to set up. Okay, you have to time it with IBC transfers in particular. We had a lot of issues with actual
Mm.
IBC transfers because it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks before the block on the other side would actually pick it up. So it's all about getting proper sync and also just making sure you have the proper setup. But it's really cool having that light speed, pretty much that instant timing, because, like we said, it imitates the centralized experience and makes things, because this whole crypto thing that we're all doing, it's supposed to be fast. This is supposed to be a better tech. I've been preaching this for years. Why are we investing so much time into something that's not an improvement? Well, now it is. So now we're at a spot where it's like, okay, this is actually fast. This is actually really super efficient and made possible with the modular stack and roll kit. So the combination of all these best things coming together is finally making some really cool, efficient, and advanced products that just simply weren't possible however many years ago, even 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. You couldn't do what we're doing right now. And it's so exciting to be able to actually do it now. So, yeah.
You're preaching to the choir. Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of infra fatigue out there on crypto Twitter, and to me, it's like, guys, just hold on, just give it a few months, and you're going to start to see like the impact of this infrastructure and why it does matter, and it's not just
Mm-hmm.
a circle jerk of all these like tech nerds doing
Mm-hmm.
this in a vacuum. It's like there was always a product motivation underneath it. It was always about trying to empower builders at the end of the day to build new products that you couldn't before. So, and again, DeFund is you guys are really leveraging that at every layer of your stack. So just a few last questions. One is, you guys were originally an L1 and you decided to migrate to being a sovereign rollup. I want to understand what drove that decision for you, and what do you see as the trade-offs between being an L1 versus being a sovereign rollup?
Yeah. Um, I'll say we were having a lot of issues managing a validator set. And don't get me wrong, these validators, a lot of them, they're just great people and they're very helpful and they want to help you do all these other things. But managing a fully distributed validator set is a tall task for a chain, and period. And it's flat out expensive. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into the cost savings, but we're talking millions in spend years in over a year versus 30 grand, 40 grand. That's like a major difference in terms of spend. That money could be used in a lot of other places. And it's not just validators, it's managing your own consensus, right? Because when you do run your own L1, you do have to manage your own consensus. And the Cosmos SDK consensus, the Byzantine fault tolerance, it works. It works really well. But you want to, if you want to make things a little faster, you have to mess around with consensus. Luckily, you don't have to mess around with consensus to make things faster using Celestia because of the nature of, okay, we're using a sequencer instead of a validator. Let's just make this thing a lot faster. And then there's a lot of other things, like, Oracle support and just other basic setup stuff that you have to do on your own as an L1 that Celestia and RollKit and all the other providers building in this ecosystem are providing to make it just a more simple experience to actually build. So just the pros outweighed the cons. Now I will say owning your L1 gives you a lot more customizability, a lot more freedom to build, I guess, an advanced stack, if that makes any sense. So building out your own consensus, like if you wanted to go down like a SUI network or like a Solana or any of these other, major L1s, you're going to want to be able to tinker with these things. You want to have full control top to bottom of your consensus, your data layer, your blocks, everything. You want to make sure that you have full control over that because you want to make it super custom. But if that's only if you're making like a general L1 for people to build on you. If you're making something like a product, you don't really need to worry about those things. You need to worry about, does it work? Is it safe? Is it efficient? If you hit those three things, your money, man. So that's where for us, we were like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to make it fast, safe, and effective. Celestia made it possible with that. So that's really why I went down that route.
Well, again, music to my ears, because the original mission of Celestia and modular stack in general was to make it as easy to deploy a chain as it is to deploy a smart contract. And the reality is, when you have to deploy a chain with its own, you have to bootstrap your own validator set, your own consensus network. Not only is it extremely time consuming, and it's also really expensive, and it's an ongoing maintenance cost. And people want to build app chains, and so they don't have a massive team. They're not going to fundraise. Don't want to have that huge barrier to entry. You want to bring that cost and that time, the development time, to be as low as possible. And it sounds like at least that was the case for you guys. So I'm very, very happy to hear that. All right, so you guys launched Testnet, and I used the product. It was really cool. It was a little rough around the edges at times, but that's to be
Mhm.
expected with a testnet. Tell us some of the stats, and what are some of the things you guys are looking for to test with this, and what do you want to see happen?
Yeah, so we like I think I tweeted it yesterday or something like that. It was 2.7 million blobs and a ton of data posted to. We're just it's spitting blocks, having a great time. Like it's so
Over a
fun
gigabyte
having,
of data you guys have posted, right? To
which is crazy in just about 2 weeks now. It's 2 weeks to the day now, which is insane to
Mhm.
me that we've been doing that much that
Well,
fast.
100 millisecond blocks fill up a lot of data
Mhm.
real fast.
Yeah, and that we have to optimize a little bit on the transaction size, but it's really cool. So, I'll say that so our testnet plan is a little different. We want to get almost this is funny the way to describe this. We're taking almost a modular approach to our testnet, where okay, right now we just launched swaps with a simple wallet login. Okay, next we're gonna add order book functionality. Just simple, you can see it really easily. Next, we're going to add limit orders, which already work. We're just adding the UI for it. Next, we're adding the full testnet dashboard. And then after that, we add the options and then the liquidity pools and then the hedge pools. And then I might as well drop this here. We're going to add NFT options. You can guess which one it's going to be. And then, and then roll more stuff out over time. So we want to make it so that we launch one thing, test it thoroughly, and then once we're confident that this is working as advertised, let's add the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and then by the end, I was given this metaphor the other day. It's like, how do you build a house? Well, you got to make sure that foundation is really strong. Because if you have a bad foundation, you could build the most beautiful house on it, but in 5 years that thing's coming down. We're
Hmm.
making this a rock solid foundation. And so that just starts by, okay, first thing we did was make sure the chain works. That was before we even took it live. Chain was running for a little bit. And then we built, okay, we got this swaps up and we launched it. And then we had a lot of community feedback. All right, we need this. Cool. We pushed an update. We made a bunch of updates just to make it easier to use. Then, like I said, going down the line, until by the time we're done, it's essentially a full fledged product ready to launch. We're feeling comfortable. Turn on the money switch. Let's make it real. And that's kind of our approach to the testnet.
So kind of a rolling upgrade approach. And again, the one of the advantages of running your chain as a roll up rather than a fully fledged L1 is it's easier to actually roll out upgrades. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like some of your upgrades are just on the UI, but anything that's at the protocol level, you have to actually coordinate with the validator set to be like, okay, we're upgrading, and you can kind of do that much more simply as a roll up.
We've probably
Okay,
done it
so
3 or 4 times already without telling people. Like it's been easy. Like
yeah,
it works really well.
and that's what I mean. Again, if you're a builder and you're trying to build a product application, you need that kind of fast iteration speed. So I could not be more pleased again to hear all this. So what's next on your roadmap? When can people expect a mainnet launch? Tell us like what people have to look forward to in the long term.
Yeah, I don't want to give an exact date on mainnet. I
Of course, don't
want to
do that.
say,
It's not.
yeah, I don't want to get because I could promise a date and then we're gonna be like, yeah, nope, doesn't happen until another few months after. The goal is to get it up
Yeah.
before the end of the year, though. I really want it up before the end of the year. I want it to be up sooner because I think the market needs this. I want to use it. I can't wait because at the end of the day, I'm gonna be trading those options. I'm gonna have so much fun actually using this thing. Um, but in terms of an actual mainnet date, can't give an exact date goals for this year. That's when the token launch is going to come out at mainnet. That's the D token. You can find the tokenomics online for that. It's a really fun token, deflationary, all the cool stuff that's going to make DeFund actually a really fun thing to use in terms of a variety of things. But that's all later this year. Um, mainnet will come shortly after testnet. I would say honestly, whenever we're done with testnet, we're just going to flip the switch to mainnet. And the roadmap is as follows. We're going to launch a mainnet with all of those features that are thoroughly in that test net. So in that order that I mentioned, swaps, and then order book, then limit, then options, then the hedge liquidity pools, and then NFT options. By the time the NFT options are up, you can expect that this thing's ready to go. Because that's kind of like just a bonus add-on that we want to throw in just to, test it out. And we're like, okay, you can, trade your sloths, but 1,000 times leverage. So that's going to be so ridiculous, and I can't
Don't
wait
get
for that.
liquidated. Don't lose
Uh,
your spots, guys.
yeah, well, here's the thing. It's the cool thing about the options is they're liquidation free, um,
Okay.
which is another ridiculous concept. But we do they're Dutch auction style vaults. So it starts as a Dutch auction vault, starts high, settles low, and then when it settles in that low price, it mints the options from that vault. You're paying the premium up front, so you can't ever lose more than what you paid up front. But depending on how much depending on how much it's actually set up, because there's a lot of determinants in the actual leverage of the option. But like I said, up to 1,000 times. Say you got the vault settles a certain price, and there's however many people put into it, hit like a 678 times leverage call for I don't know
Cool.
today August 30th, September 30th. You'll be able to trade that. And on expiration, you're either in the money or out of the money, or you could sell it before then. If you're in the money, out of the money, really fun stuff. We're able to combine.
Uh,
There's a couple other protocols doing similar stuff, and we took bits and pieces and took our own spin on it.
yeah, you
So
guys are just overflowing with ideas. So to wrap up,
too many.
a last question. Last question that I want to ask you is, what does build whatever with Celestia underneath mean to you?
It means actually being able to build whatever, like an app that just like you would in traditional Web 2. If I wanted to pop up a drop shipping store and I wanted to sell freaking brooms and mops, I could go to Shopify and build it within a day. Celestia, I can do the same thing. Now, I don't want to say within a day, but you could have a chain up in a day with RollKit and Celestia. There you go. Now you just need to pair front end with it, roll it out. And if you really want to go crazy, you can use a no code platform and hook it up in the background. You got a front end and a back end done like that. You just build whatever really fast. So that's really what I see Celestia when I think of build whatever. It's actually enabling you to build whatever really freaking fast instead of having to essentially rebuild the internet just to get something to work. So that's why I see it.
Awesome. Well, John, it's been great to have you on. Thanks for, explaining all about DeFund and talking through all these really interesting product features and challenges of building an app in the modular stack. Where can people, do you have any closing thoughts? And then please tell the audience where they can follow along with DeFund and get involved.
For sure. And thanks for having me, man. I would say follow us, dfund_finance on Twitter. You can access testnet right now at hq.defund.app. It's a basic testnet, but it's ever growing. And I just want to say I'm really excited to grow with, the greater modular ecosystem and everyone else that's connected. I just am so excited to see, this time next year, where the hell we're going to be. I think it's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be a lot more users, this multi-trillion dollar industry is going to be huge. I think we're looking at a $13 trillion market cap in the next 3 years if we do it right. And that's going to be really cool for all of us. And the only way I see us actually getting there is building stuff like DeFund, where we can just have everything connected, and stuff like Celestia, where it's just easy to build stuff like DeFund. So that's my closing thoughts.
Could not have said it better myself. Modularism, not maximalism. Well, thank you guys all for tuning in. John, thanks for hopping on. And I'll be tracking you guys' testnet very closely. So keep us updated.
Appreciate it. Will do.